What is up, my spooky mates of YouTube? My name is Marcel from Aussie Horror, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing one of the newest horror movies from 2023, When Evil Lurks. So if that sounds good to you, let's get into the video. When Evil Lurks seems to be the horror movie of 2023, and for good reason. Directed by Damien Rugner, please excuse the pronunciation, I'm merely Australian. We simply cannot pronounce foreign names. It's basically a meme. It's a lean and mean piece of Argentine cinema that will leave an impression on the genre for quite some time. With that being said, there's half of an incredible film here, whereas the other half is merely good. The first half of the film is a lean, mean, tension-filled bit of possession horror, and the second half is a little slower, more methodically paced, less frantic, and all in all, it just seems to fall apart ever so slightly under the weight of what it's trying to accomplish here in the movie. Despite that though, I still find myself loving this movie. There are two scenes in particular that will be remembered in this film. One involving a pregnant woman and the other scene involving a dog. If you've seen this movie, you're gonna know what scenes I'm talking about, so please don't spoil it in the comments for anybody that hasn't seen them, as this is for the most part a spoiler-free review. Those two scenes in particular are brutal, visceral, and they truly encapsulate the horrific nature of horror itself. The acting in particular in this film is worthy of the highest praise. There is a touch of telenovela drama here, but honestly I think that adds to the overall feel of the movie. The two lead characters of Jimmy, played by Ezekiel Rodriguez, and Pedro, played by Damien Salomon, brothers that genuinely come across as two men that have been through a lot together. They've been through tough times and they've emerged out of the other side of that. What this film does though is it puts them through something traumatic and wicked and worse than they could have ever possibly imagined. And what these brothers have to go through during this film is almost unspeakable, and I'm going to leave it up to your imagination until you watch the movie yourself. When Evil Lurks reminds me of a more modern, lean and mean, less comedic version of the Evil Dead films, with no wisecracking hero to save the day. Unfortunately, there's no hero quite as good as Ash to save the day in this movie. And the first film that immediately came to mind when I was watching this was Evil Dead Rise, but without any of the black comedy or cynical humor. When Evil Lurks is a straight up horror movie. It plays dead serious, and all 99 minutes of it without comedy or any relief whatsoever. I want to bring special attention to the music of the film by J. Peter Robinson. His choices here remind me of some of my favorite post-apocalyptic scores. Think of video games even, games like Days Gone and The Last of Us. Moody classical guitar plays while the camera lingers on a rural landscape and quiet wooded areas, subtly hinting at the evil that lurks within. And in all honesty, my biggest gripe with the movie is that the second half doesn't have that frantic pacing or the chaotic what the fuck is happening moments that the first half of the movie has. There's a disconnect there. Most horror movies inevitably have those slower, tension-building moments, but When Evil Lurks doesn't really benefit from the slower moments here, nor does it benefit from that tension building in the second half of the movie. It actually works against the movie, and after you've seen it, you'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about, so if that's you, let me know in the comments below, especially if you have an opinion different to mine about the movie. The first half of this movie, make no mistake, is 10 out of 10 horror cinema, and the second half is probably more in the realms of the 7 out of 10. I still really liked it and I like where the film goes, but it's just that jarring shift in pace that really, I felt, didn't add anything to the movie.
Con él. Esto va a ser un infierno.
There's a lot to love about When Evil Lurks, and even when the taste of more contemporary art house horror movies creeps across your tongue, the sheer impact here is classic vintage horror. It's brutal and visceral when it needs to be, and you'll still feel the impact of it long after the credits roll. Props to Shudder for what's, in my opinion, the best movie that they've produced, and shows an immensity of promise for director Damien Rugner's future career. All in all, I loved most of When Evil Lurks. and there are some moments in particular in this movie, some of the jump scares that get me even, and I despise when you can predict the jump scare coming. Personally, I hate it when jump scares are so utterly predictable, but the ones in this movie are tastefully done, they're few and far between, so it actually heightens their impact, and they got me. They truly got me. There's one scene near the middle of the film involving a dog that got me in particular, and that is just a brutal scene in and of itself. I mentioned it a little earlier. If you've got a Shudder subscription, I highly recommend checking this one out. It's worth every second, and I would especially recommend this movie for anybody that's a little disheartened with how the horror genre has leaned into the more art house style films. This is a pulled back, more visceral, contemporary take on the possession genre. And if there is a sequel, and I don't think this movie needs a sequel, but I can sort of envision or imagine a really effective sequel to this one, and I'm really looking forward to the future of the director's career. But in saying that, not every movie needs a sequel, obviously. Anyways, if you've ever seen this movie before, let me know in the comments below. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. And until the next video, my name is Marcel from Aussie Horror, and I'll catch you guys around.